أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. We are continuing with the study of Surah Al-KAHF, and today inshallah we'll do from ayah number 98 till ayah number 101. So Allah Ta'ala says Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قال هذا رحمة من ربي فإذا جاء وعد ربي جعله دكاء وكان وعد ربي حقا. Hazrat Zulkarnain al-Islam has made this barrier between the two mountains where a narrow pass was from which Yajuj and Majuj used to come out and attack. And he has filled it up with iron and copper. And now he says, Qala, says Zulkarnain al-Islam, هَذَا رَحْمَةٌ مِّن رَبِّي. This is a mercy from my sustainer. فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي. And when the time appointed by my sustainer shall come, جَعَلَهُ دَكَّاءَ. This rampant or this barrier would be level with the ground. So it would be totally destroyed. It will collapse down to the ground level. وَكَانَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي حَقًّا. And my sustainer's promise always comes true. Usually the term promise of Rabb, Wa'du Rabbi, is always referring to the day of judgment in the Quran. So he's saying this barrier is not going to be there forever. It has a certain lifespan, it has an expiry date, and when the time comes, it would be totally leveled with the ground. So what's going to happen then? And Allah Ta'ala in the next ayah explains what's going to happen. وَتَرَكْنَا بَعْضُهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ يَمُوجُ فِي بَعْضٍ وَالنُّفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ فَجَمَعْنَاهُمْ جَمْعًا. So two things Allah Ta'ala is saying. And on that day we shall leave them to surge like waves against one another, and the trumpet will be blown, and we shall gather them all together. Now, from the hadith and the Quran, we know that what Allah Ta'ala is saying here is that near the day of judgment, this barrier would collapse and Yajuj and Majuj would be liberated. So, when will it happen? Hadith and Quran says near the day of judgment, after the war, which is the final Armageddon war between Isa al-Islam and Dajjal, and when he has won the war and he's established the rule of Allah all over the world, and there's peace and prosperity and justice for all mankind. At that time, the hadith says that Allah Ta'ala is going to say to Isa alayhi salam that I am going to unleash one of my creatures, one of my creations, the Yajuj and Majuj, which nobody can fight. And this barrier will collapse. This Yajuj and Majuj will come out and they'll spread in the world. So initially they'll spread from the area nearby. Probably people would not know. Their numbers would increase, taking in all the food supply and water available in the area. They'll keep moving on in all 360 degrees directions. And by the time they become visible and they become acknowledgeable by mankind that yes, there is a problem, it would be too late. And they would keep on expanding. And when they keep on expanding and they keep on consuming all the resources, the human population would start to retreat. Because we might be able to fight them, but if there's nothing left behind, no food, no water, how are we going to reclaim that land? They're having a scorched earth policy. They're destroying everything. So they would keep expanding till humanity is restricted to the area of Hijaz near Makkah and Medina. And at that time, Allah Ta'ala is going to send among them a disease, a contagious disease, from which humans would be immune, but these Yajuj and Majuj would not be immune. And they would have the spread of that disease very fast, and they would succumb to it, and all of them would die en masse. And after that would be the day of judgment. Then Allah Ta'ala is going to have the trumpet blown by the angel. And the angel, when he blows the trumpet, Surah Israfil, then it would be that all life would cease to exist and the day of judgment would be held. Now, scholars have disagreed. Some scholars have said that this is not the case. Yajuj and Majuj are already out, and they name either the Europeans or the Chinese or whichever race they despise. and they say that these are the Yajuj and Majuj, and near to Qiyamah they will research again. But when I looked at the tafaseer, the ancient tafaseer from Ibn Kathir, from Imam Razi, and some really big names in Islam, all of them agree that according to Hadith and Quran, this is going to happen near Yawm al-Qiyamah, near the last hour. And especially in Hadith, it's very clear that they will come after Isa alayhi salam, not before Isa alayhi salam. So where did these new tafaseer come, which say that they have already been released from the wall and they are around us and all this is happening? And when I looked at it, I found out that all of these tafaseer are from the colonial period. So when the Muslim world was overrun by the European powers and we became slaves, and it was a terrible time, because I think apart from Turkey, Hijaz and North Yemen, every other place was taken over by the Europeans. They started to object and criticize, and especially with the scientific revolution, they said, where are the Yajuj and Majuj, and where is this wall, and why can't we see it, and this is a story, we don't want to believe it, although it's in the Bible, it's already there. But they would criticize the Muslims. So Muslims became very defensive, and our ulama, some of the very great scholars of Islam, they went on this defensive back foot, and they started to play defensive strokes like, no, the Yajuj and Majuj are already out, and they're already there. And towards the end of times, there's not going to be a new unleashing of Yajuj and Majuj. But I object to it, because if we are labeling the Europeans as Yajuj and Majuj, among them are many Muslims. If somebody is labeling the Chinese as Yajuj and Majuj, there are like more than 10 million Muslims among the Chinese. So how do you explain that? If it's a racial phenomena and they're already out from the barrier and they're going to overrun the world, how do you justify such a huge number of Muslims among them? And according to Hadith and Quran, we do not see any evidence that Yajuj and Majuj are going to accept Islam, or a portion of them would become Muslims. There's no such thing. They are just mutated evil beings who consume without replacing and who are hell-bent on death and destruction. There's no mention of them having conviction of Islam. Now, if you see in history, this has a lot to do with the apocalyptic thinking, which is known as apocalypticism, end of times, people being obsessed with end of times. So let's start from the time of the Prophet ﷺ. When the Prophet ﷺ went away from this world, there were some hadiths which mentioned signs of end of times. And after he was gone, there was a volcano eruption a few decades later, in which the lava flowed all the way up to Medina, but then stopped near Medina. And there's a hadith which says that near to Qiyamah, there is going to be a fire which will start from the east and come to Medina and only stop near Medina. So people started to believe that this is it. The day of judgment is close and Yajuj and Majuj would be coming very soon. That did not happen. Then Yazid attacked Medina and Makkah and killed in the holy cities, and all kind of atrocities were committed. All kind of imaginable war atrocities were committed after Karbala. Mostly in history, people don't even talk about it, that there have been hundreds of revolts after Karbala which were brutally crushed, and people said, this is the end of time, it's going to happen. But it did not happen. At the time of the Umayyads, the Muslims army went and confronted the Turks in Central Asia. There was a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ which says that Qiyamah would not come, the day of judgment would not come till the Muslims fight the people who wear shoes made out of hair. And the Turkish race was described in it, and their clothes and how they dressed up and how they went to war, all of that was described in detail, and said the first war the Muslims are going to lose, but the second one they're going to win. And that's exactly what happened. And when that happened, people started to say, these are the Yajuj and Majuj, we've had a confrontation with them, and Yawm al-Qiyamah is near. But Yawm al-Qiyamah did not come. After that, in the Abbasid time, the Turks became so powerful that they took over most of the Abbasid Caliphate land, and even in the armies of the Abbasi Khulafa and among the ministers, there were Turks, and people again said, they are the Yajuj and Majuj, they've overtaken everything, and end of time is coming. Very soon there's going to be Imam Mahdi and Isa alayhi salam coming, but that did not happen. Then the Crusades happened, and that was quite convincing. The Crusaders came, they defeated all the Muslims, they took over the Muslim land, took over Jerusalem, and everyone started saying, these are the Yajuj and Majuj, they are from the sons of Japheth, and they have been released, and now we have to wait for Isa alayhi salam and Imam Mahdi to come. But they did not come. So what happened was that finally Nuruddin Zangi and Salahuddin Ayyubi had to take up the task, fight against the Crusaders and drive them out of the land. And then the most convincing thing ever happened to Muslims. The Mongol and Tatar came. Chengiz Khan came with his armies, his hordes. Chengiz Khan and his army was Mongol, but they were not big enough in number. So they got a lot of Tatar tribes around them. So they became a big army, and they were called the Mongol and Tatar, and later on just the Tatar. And they invaded and they destroyed the Muslim empires. They destroyed towns and villages and cities and fortifications, ran over every place. They used to burn the ground which they left behind. They used to destroy everything. They were very much like Yajuj and Majuj. And they came from an area where a Yellow River flowed, the Yangtze River in China. So they were labeled as Yajuj Majuj, and they came from behind the Great Wall of China. Again, more convincing. Everyone said they are Yajuj and Majuj. And one of the stories which I really cannot get out of my head, and I heard it as a child, and stayed with me forever, that during this period, one single Mongol Tatar soldier went into a Muslim village. One single soldier. The Muslim village had approximately 100 grown-up men. So he rounded them all up. They all came and stood in front of him. And he asked one of those men to tie the hands of all the other 99 men. And they did that. So everyone allowed themselves to be tied by this one man. When that one man was done, this Tatar soldier killed that one man. And then 99 people were standing there, grown-up men, strong fighting men, with their hands tied. He killed all of them and he walked away. And this was the norm, almost the norm. Very few people fought against them. They were so scared of them being Yajuj and Majuj that every time Tatars would show up, people would give up. And they were waiting for what? For Isa alayhi salam and waiting for Imam Mahdi. So they come and miraculously fix everything for them and they don't have to do anything. That did not happen. Finally, you had Bibris from Egypt who rose up and he fought. Only Egypt had survived the onslaught. And in India, I think the Khiljis or the Tughlaqs were there. They had survived the onslaught. Even in India, up to Multan, the Chengiz Khan army had come and conquered everything. And nowadays, before nowadays, let's see the colonial times. Same things happened in the colonial times. We got occupied. All the Muslim lands were occupied by the Europeans. And all our scholars and ulama said, end of time has come, Qiyamah is coming, these are the Yajuj and Majuj. Do nothing, sit and wait for Isa alayhi salam and Imam Mahdi. And that's what we did, till we realized that they have not arrived. And then we made some struggle and got our freedom. Now every few years, starting with the Iraq war, they said, well, these are the Yajuj and Majuj, Americans and Europeans, they are here. End of times has come. Wait for Isa alayhi salam and Imam Mahdi. 9/11 happened, same thing. Syrian war, same happened. ISIS, Daesh came, and every relevant hadith was put there and said, this is the end of time, this is the end of time, this is the end of time. There are two things with end of times. There's absolutely no disagreement that we are getting close to the Yawm al-Qiyamah. The day we are born, we are getting close to death. Every passing day, me and you are getting close to our death. And every passing day, the human race is getting close and close to the end of times, to the Yawm al-Qiyamah. There's no doubt in that. And yes, there are many signs around us. And the signs have been around for more than 1,000 years. Signs described in the hadith. They have been fulfilled more than 1,000 years. Now, two things we have to do. The Prophet ﷺ said, when the signs of Qiyamah are clear, Dajjal has come and he's spreading his evil power everywhere. All the signs of Qiyamah have come. If an old Muslim man is about to plant a tree, he should go ahead and plant it. Now, this is very pointless from the worldly point of view. From the worldly perspective, this old man is never going to see that tree bloom. The signs of Qiyamah are 100% fulfilled, so the planet would be destroyed before this tree even grows. Why should he plant the tree? Because Allah Ta'ala judges us by our actions, not by the results. He is going to get a good deed for planting the tree. Even if the tree never grows, even if the world ends, he should not give up hope. He should go and do the right thing. If we believe in Yawm al-Qiyamah, if we believe in the Day of Judgment and the last hour and the signs of the last hours, we should be more vigilant. We should be more active. We should be doing a lot of things. We should be clearing up all the mess that has been created in our world by ourselves and by others. But we are not doing that. We have found an escapism. End of times, Yajuj Majuj, Imam Mahdi and Isa al-Islam have become our escapism. When Isa al-Islam and Imam Mahdi come, they're not going to bring armies of angels with them and miraculously fix everything. We are going to be their army. They are going to ask us to do the thing, and we are not prepared for it. We are sitting with a long handover list. Like in a hospital, you have a busy night shift. The doctors and nurses know in the morning a big team is coming. So they don't just sit there and do nothing and make a list of things to do to hand over in the morning and say, well, haven't done anything overnight. Patients have got fever, they've got cough, they're dying. Did nothing because I knew you were coming in the morning. You are a better doctor, a senior doctor. Here you are. Long list of things to do for you. So what we have got is a long list of handovers for Isa al-Islam, Imam Mahdi. Fix everything. Yeah, there is a lot of crime going on, and there's a lot of corruption, and there is a lot of riba and interest-based economy and poverty and a big difference between the rich and the poor, a lot of economic disparity. Here you are. We have collected all of these things for you. We didn't try to fix any one of these because they were the signs of your arrival. So we thought, let things get worse, don't fix them, keep them as they are so you could arrive. That is not the logic that Quran and Hadith teaches us. But that is exactly the logic which the Bible and the Christian faith is teaching. They think the more trouble they have in the world is going to be easier for Isa al-Islam to come. And that is not true. That's not Quran and Hadith. So we have to keep our concepts clear. Firstly, Yajuj and Majuj would come after Isa al-Islam. Secondly, before Isa al-Islam, Imam Mahdi come, we have to take our own responsibility, and we can't collect problems for them. And the closer it gets to the time of Fitnatul Dajjal, the more vigilant, active and hard-working we have to be as a nation and as individuals. And next Allah Ta'ala says, in the next ayah, وَأَرَدْنَا جَهَنَّمَ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْكَافِرِينَ أَرْضًا. And on that day we shall place hell for all to see before those who denied the truth. Now, kafirin, the word kafir, is someone who denies the truth. Now, this is very interesting. Allah Ta'ala is Rahman and Rahim. But the word kafir is used by us nowadays as an insult. And we use it in a very negative, derogatory term. So when we want to put someone down, we say he's a kafir. And when we say kafir, he means evil, bad. That's not the word from the Arabic language which is used by Allah Ta'ala. Kafir is basically a person who is cultivating the land and he buries the seed in the ground. So Allah Ta'ala has used a very benign word, a very humble word, someone who's burying a seed. So it is someone who's hiding the truth. He sees the truth, he knows there's Allah, he knows that there is a messenger from Allah, but he is hiding that truth, like someone burying a seed in the ground. Now there's a very beautiful implication to it. Firstly, the word is not very negative. It is just a farmer. And second implication is, when you bury the seed in the ground, what happens? If you give that seed water and light, it grows up to be a plant and then a full tree. You can have a full-fledged tree from that seed, which will bear more fruit and more seeds. So you try to hide one seed, but given the right environment, water and light, that seed becomes a tree over time and bears more fruit and more seed. What you're trying to hide, in fact, becomes more evident. So a kafir has a lot of potential. If he is given the right guidance, and the guidance in Quran is always parabled as light and water. Allah Ta'ala, even in Surah Baqarah, says about the Prophet that he lit a light, and when everything was enlightened around it, when the whole environment was bright, there were people whose vision was taken away and they could not see. So light is a parable in the Quran for the guidance from Allah, for our iman. And water is the same. Allah Ta'ala describes His revelations as water in the Quran. So imagine, kafir is hiding this truth in the ground, but given the light and water of guidance from Allah, that truth cannot remain hidden. It can become a full-fledged tree. And from that one tree, you can have many other trees blooming and blossoming and a whole jungle over time. So this is what Allah is saying, that people who are kafir, they have huge potential. They have a potential if they are given the right guidance. And in the next ayah, Allah Ta'ala is describing who these kafirs are, who these people who hide the truth, who are they? Allazina, these are the people, كانت أعينهم في غطاء عن ذكري وكانوا لا يستطيعون السمع. Those whose eyes have been veiled against any remembrance of me because they could not bear to listen to the voice of truth. Now, I'd like to draw a line here between kafir and mushrik. Mushrik is someone who's doing shirk. He may or may not know he's doing the wrong thing. He might be misguided. Kafir is the one who knows the truth, but he is hiding it. He's ignoring it. He's trying not to listen. So you can be a Muslim and show the behavior of a kafir. In fact, you need to have the word of Allah reach you. You have to be exposed to the truth before you can hide it. If you don't know the truth, how can you hide it? So kafir is only the one who has got the message of Allah, who's understood the message of Allah, and who prefers to deny it and hide it. In today's world, how many people are we taking the message of Allah to? In our tabligh, there's a very big movement of tabligh, and I'm a big fan of them and I hugely respect them. They preach only to the Muslims. So Muslims preaching to the Muslims to make them better Muslims, and then preach again to maintain them as better Muslims. And it's a massive movement, and it's a wonderful movement. It's a great movement. But I have a question. If 10% of that effort which we spend on preaching to Muslims and making them better Muslims and then maintaining them as better Muslims for the last 100 years, if 10% of that effort we had put in preaching to the non-Muslims, at least half of the world would have been Muslim by now. And that's where we are failing. So people we are calling kafir today are not really kafir because they're not hiding the truth, because we have never taken the truth to them. They are unaware of the truth. And on the day of judgment, they're just going to point to you and me and say, these people, they did not bring us the message of Islam. We never knew what the truth was. So we can't label them as kafir, and they would not be treated as kafir. So inshallah, tomorrow we'll do the next ayah, which needs a lot of discussion and is one of the very sensitive issues in the Quran among the current Muslims, where a lot of controversy exists. So inshallah, we'll take on that ayah tomorrow, bi'ithnillah. Till then, please remember me and everyone else in your prayers, inshallah. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.